Vietnam, Southeast Asia. Remote, thick jungle. Anything could lie in wait. Out here, it's hard to know who's tracking who. Somewhere lurks a creature so rare, some say it's just a myth. Others think it's real, and the most secretive mammal on the planet. Now a mission is underway to find the Phantom.
Not a single Western scientist has seen them.
Only a watertight body of evidence can save it. But is it too late?
We are getting really very, very worried.
Is there still time to make the world believe in the Phantom of Vietnam? This lush rainforest is a rare pocket of unspoilt wilderness, in a country ranked 14th most populated in the world. 83 million people and counting. It's remarkable then that the Cat Tien National Park, just 150 kilometers north of the capital Saigon, still has areas of virgin jungle. Some of the most spectacular and endangered wildlife on the planet hides out here. Forest elephants, wild bears, and the rarest crocodiles in the world. It looks perfect. But even this paradise wasn't immune to one of the most devastating world events of the 20th century. The Vietnam War. Nothing could escape the crossfire. A war with no defined front line, this battle went right to the grassroots of the nation. Millions of lives were lost by the time the 9-year war ended in 1973. Today, a different battle is underway, and this time, it's personal. Meet the ex-military tracker, the international wildlife agent, and the Vietnamese biologist, who've come together on a mission to hunt down one survivor they believe is still missing in action. Not an AWOL soldier, but the world's rarest mammal. But it will take military planning and forensic science to find this phantom of the jungle. The animal behind the rumor is a rhino. Often lumped under the heading Javan rhino, the animals here have been isolated for thousands of years and have become genetically distinct. The Vietnamese ones are thought to be a rare subspecies. There is no footage of the rhinos in Vietnam, but these near-identical neighbors in Java give clues to their biology. Even in Java's national park Ujang Kulon, only around 60 are left, barely enough to secure their future. Vietnam and Java share the same kind of rainforest, dense and low-growing. By rights, Vietnam should have its own healthy rhino population, but so far it's not looking good. Our team of phantom trackers can barely see or hear more than a meter ahead. The Viet Cong guerrilla army were elusive because they used knowledge of their home turf. American soldiers found the terrain impossibly tough. Nobody knows how many lives were lost during the war, but it was in the millions. Over 7 million tons of explosives were dropped on Vietnam. 3.5 times that used during World War II. 450 kilos for every man, woman, and child in the country. Half the jungle in Vietnam was destroyed, around 1 million hectares. It's not surprising that the animal death toll was also great. For the rhinos, hammered by centuries of hunting and deforestation, the war was the last straw. The Vietnamese rhino was presumed extinct. But after 40 years of silence, eyewitnesses started reporting sightings in the most remote part of the Cat Tien National Park. Could there be a glimmer of hope that the phantom is still out there? Staying hidden can help a rare animal stay alive. But now, ironically, the only chance of survival in Vietnam is getting found. But not by poachers. Thanks to the park wardens, no rhino has been lost to poachers since 1987. But if the rhinos are out there, more than just poacher patrols are needed to save them. Gert Pollitt, a Dutch biologist, is heading up the mission to prove the Vietnamese rhino is alive and worth saving. He's already rescued the country's rarest reptile. The Siamese crocodile was believed extinct in Vietnam, but the breeding program is now returning them to the wild. But unlike crocodiles, so far he can't even find the rhinos, let alone catch one. Besides, it's almost impossible to get rhinos to breed in captivity. Even handling 2-meter crocs with 60 razor-sharp teeth apiece is easy compared to tracking down a phantom.
There is nothing known about these rhinos. Not a single Western scientist has seen them. The more we start to understand the situation, the worse it looks, really. Probably we can count them on one hand.
Mai Bui, Vietnamese biologist and world authority on rhinos, works with Gert. Scarce sightings in Java confirm rhino survival. Will Vietnam ever reveal the same? This is an animal with full knowledge of evasion tactics. Finding it will not be easy. Enter ex-soldier turned park ranger Pang Chu. His expert tracking skills acquired during the Vietnam War round off the team. But time is running out. They don't just need to find a rhino. To convince world authorities that the rhino is worth saving, they'll need to prove that there are enough left to keep the Vietnamese population alive.
There have been many surveys before on the rhino in the park, and there's different estimations on the number of rhinos. The 1999 survey, they estimated about 7 to 8, but so far there's still no accurate conclusion, no final conclusion about the number of rhinos.
The men have no idea what lies ahead. Apart from 74,000 hectares of almost impenetrable forest, this is the Cat Tien National Park in central Vietnam. Home to 275 species of mammal, over 800 different kinds of birds, and more reptiles and insects than anyone has been able to count. If the rhino is there, it's likely to be hiding out in very dense undergrowth. And if it's anything like its Javan counterpart, it will be near water, with plenty of leaves to browse on. After decades of being hunted, these rhinos have learned from experience to avoid people. So much so, they've switched from being daytime to nocturnal animals. Luckily, the rhinos do leave some clues that can be found during daylight hours, although searching the trails has its pitfalls. The 6-meter Burmese python looks menacing, but pythons don't bite. They use 90-kilo muscular bodies to suffocate their prey, and they're easy to spot. The real problem is poison. In Vietnam, 30,000 people are bitten by venomous snakes every year. 22% of attacks are fatal. The most common culprit is the white-lipped pit viper, with venom that stops your blood from clotting, so that you bleed to death. Nice to know when your day job takes you trekking through the jungle.
The area where they are surviving is very inaccessible. It is a hilly place, very steep hills and very dense bamboo and rattan vegetation. You can walk past a rhino on 5 meters distance from you without noticing it because the vegetation is so dense.
Like the Javan subspecies, this 1.5-meter tall 2-ton mammal is a solitary browser, stripping leaves up to 2.5 meters. With skin like armor plating and mud for camouflage, it seems to disappear into the jungle. No such luck for the men. With the dry, brittle bamboo leaves underfoot, everything can hear them coming. The men hear noises through the bushes. They're hoping for a rhino, but keep guns at the ready in case it's poachers. An Asian elephant. No need for weapons. 3 meters tall, 4 tons, the largest animal on the continent. A rare sight. Only 15 remain in the park. Like the rhino, they have been hunted to the point of extinction. If elephants can survive here, surely that's a good sign for the rhinos. But they can't afford to lose valuable time watching elephants. With just months before funding and official backing could run out, the pressure is on. Not so long ago, every rhino that was found was killed, either for sport or food. Just outside Saigon, poachers made headlines for killing a rhino in the 1980s. Now, the only place you're guaranteed to see one is this skeleton in Hanoi's Natural History Museum. Vietnamese rhinos have been hunted since men first encountered them. One small mercy was that the corpses confiscated during the 1980s provided the first evidence since the war that rhinos had dodged extinction. If only now a scientist could see a live one, that would be incontrovertible proof that the world authorities need. But are there enough rhinos left to keep a healthy population going? They use the river to penetrate deep into the forest. Footprints on the bank something huge has dragged itself from the water. Rhinos spend a lot of time wallowing. Evidently, this animal was bathing when it was disturbed. Could a rhino be watching them even now from the shadows? To go any further, they must confront the challenges of the jungle on foot. Rhinos have poor eyesight, struggling to discern the shape of a person at 100 meters. But a powerful sense of smell, fueled by a nasal passage bigger than its brain, and with independently rotating ears, they miss nothing. With this biological scanning, they can detect intruders and retreat long before they are spotted. With 3-centimeter thick skin, a rhino can push through the toughest scrub without even so much as a scratch. The men will need to up their game. Everything leaves tracks, if you know what you're looking for. Mai's eagle eyes make a breakthrough. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. But to a rhino biologist, a valuable piece of evidence. Torn leaves. Did a rhino browse here? The tears match a rhino head height and lip tearing action. With imagination, they can piece together the animal's actions. Rhinos have been feeding in the area. They must be closing in on their target. But even before they can pick up the trail, it becomes confused. A herd of gaur, or Asian bison. Sharing similar habitat to the rhino, the enormous cattle also leave similar feeding signs. With different jaws chomping leaves at rhino head height, the trail of evidence is quickly lost. Gaur are threatened by diseases like rinderpest and foot and mouth, spread from domestic cattle. But this healthy herd in Cat Tien make a spectacular sight. Each group of around 30 cows is led by a massive 2-meter tall bull. Despite their size, the cattle slip back into the forest in near silence. For the rhino team, time to reflect. Already the project is turning up positive clues. It looks like they've been close behind a rhino, following the trail where it has bathed and fed. They feel closer to their goal, but it's way too early to start counting chickens, let alone rhinos. They know from experience that the jungle is good at throwing new problems your way. 4-kilo bamboo rats sleep out the day underground, but night brings them out to forage. They're joined by a pangolin, an ancient mammal sometimes called a scaly anteater. But their nocturnal outings are about to be disturbed. A worryingly alien smell grows in the air. Thanks to strong winds, the fire spreads rapidly, threatening everything in its path. Some animals fly or run away, but for others, it's already too late. The slow and heavy pangolin seeks refuge in a termite mound. Fires have always been a natural part of forest life, but these days they're mostly caused by lack of fire breaks between the park and neighboring farms. When that happens, it must be stopped. It's a long night before the inferno is brought under control. The next morning, Gert finds he has another rescue project on his hands. An orphaned cat. The kitten's so young, it's hard to confirm, but it looks like a leopard cat. Like many spotted cats, leopard cats are threatened by fashion's demand for fur. He will do his best to return this lucky individual to the safety of the park.
In the park in general, we have quite a few different species of animals, but most of them, if not all of them, are nocturnal. Some of them are by nature nocturnal, like this one, but like deer have been hunted quite a lot and got scared and became nocturnal. It's an interesting forest, but it's very hard to see really animals here because it is so hard to find them in the dark. And it's a thick jungle as well, so you can pass an animal very close without noticing it.
Something the rhino might have used to their advantage. Already the rhino project is throwing up some exciting results. But it's time for them to use a bit of help to get in closer on the phantom. They're going to set a trap. A camera trap. With the data accumulated so far and their knowledge of rhino behavior, they've located game trails they believe the rhinos use again and again. With a camera on one side of the trail and a sensor on the other, the trap is set. Mai tests the equipment. When the infrared beam is broken, the trap is sprung and the culprit captured on film. Now they have spies in the forest, all seeing electrical eyes, offering the greatest chance of finally revealing a rhino in the flesh. Something lurks in the bushes. Will the camera trap reveal its identity? In the jungle, the animals, it seems, are always one step ahead. Once the rhino team has passed through, creatures of the forest begin to emerge. The largest carnivore on the continent, an Asiatic black bear. Reported to bring down prey animals as big as a buffalo, these bears eat mostly smaller prey. With powerful claws, they can rake the ground for fruit and insects or dig for roots, sniffing them out with their sensitive noses. Black bears are another threatened species finding safety in the park. Beyond the impact of humans, these rainforests have always had dangers of their own. All around, tiny dramas unfold. Biologist Mai, conservationist Gert, and tracker Pang remain dedicated to the trail. All the evidence says that the rhinos are confined to a pocket of jungle, a 4,000-hectare region in the north of the park known as Cat Lock. Why they remain here is unknown, but it represents a potential problem to increasing their numbers. It also makes them incredibly hard for our men to reach. After 2 weeks, it's time to check the camera traps. At first glance, it looks promising. But it's disappointing news. It seems the camera has trapped everything apart from rhinos. It doesn't look good for the rhinos, and the team is disheartened. But things are about to go from bad to worse. One thing beyond their control is weather. The monsoon has arrived. Vietnam has around 100 days of rain a year, up to 2 meters of water. The monsoon is just getting underway. With typhoons expected, the project is stalled. The men could be off the track for weeks, even months. It's a good time for rhinos, but not for anybody wanting to work in the park. Now confined to his desk, Gert must face his paperwork. Writing reports to keep sponsorship coming in is just as important as tracking the animals.
Unfortunately, my daily work consists mostly of this stuff, sitting behind a computer and get things written up and get in touch with people, keep contact with a lot of different organizations.
For Mai, this downtime is vital catching up time, when he can review the clues amassed to date. One key area of his work is footprint analysis.
For footprint analysis is one of the most important for rhino because they are difficult to see. So we analyze different measurements on the footprints. For example, the width of the footprints, the length of the footprints, the width and the shape of the front hoof. And those things will be put on the computer for comparison.
In some animals, like tigers, counting footprints isn't an accurate way of counting individuals, but for rhinos, it seems to work. Every foot has a different pattern of wrinkles. By gathering the tracks, Mai hopes to estimate the number of rhinos still alive. While the biologists return to their desks, Pang takes a trip home. Pang picked up his expert tracking skills during a more dangerous period of Vietnam's history, the Vietnam War. Like the Viet Cong, Pang learned how to use local knowledge to disappear into the jungle. For nearly a decade, the country was locked in war. 58,000 American soldiers were lost, and more than 1 million Vietnamese lives were claimed. Perhaps the most devastating long-term effects of the war were the chemical attacks. During their campaign against communism, the Americans sprayed a lethal herbicide, Agent Orange. 100,000 tons of this chemical that strips leaves from trees were dropped. Designed to reveal Viet Cong hideouts, Agent Orange removed 44% of the forest and enough farmland to feed 2 million people. During the fighting, animals were hunted for food. It's said that soldiers even shot rhinos for sport. People, animals and landscapes alike suffered. Peace was declared in 1972, and ever since, the people of Vietnam have been rebuilding their war-torn land. Back out in the park, the rains are finally beginning to ease off. Rapidly, the forest responds to the rain with bursts of color. The last few drops of rainwater disturb one animal's slumber. The Sunda pangolin. Powerful claws and a sticky tongue are tools in a battle of wits against termites. The body armor, made of matted skin, shields aggressive attacks from termite soldiers. This time of plenty in the park, when water levels are at their highest, is the perfect time for Gert to conclude one of his most monumentous projects. Can he undo history? It's time to return the Siamese crocodiles to Vietnam. After a final checkup, they are prepared for the long journey ahead. All crocodiles have big teeth, but the Siamese is considered less dangerous than its larger relatives, and of little threat to local people. Still, at 2 to 3 meters in length, these animals are strong, and the rangers must move carefully to avoid a clash with some powerful jaws. It seems nothing in Cat Tien is easy. For 5 kilometers, the staff have no choice other than to push their 300-kilo charges, crocs on wheels. These are pioneers, a new colony turning back the clock. Siamese crocodiles are back in Vietnam. But the question remains, can the phantom make a comeback? Or is all lost for the rhinos of Vietnam? The answer lies somewhere out there. Now that the rains have eased off, trails are open again. Time for Gert and the team to hit the road. Will the camera trap have done its job? The trap has been triggered. The film is full. Let's hope it's not just bears again. The films will have to be sent to Saigon for processing. It will be days before Gert can confirm that the team's efforts have been worthwhile. The courier finally clears rush hour traffic and heads for the park. Gert joins the rest of the team at Rhino headquarters. This is what they've all waited years to see.
What do you think? What's that?
Maybe the same.
The images are clear. Center frame, a rhino. Finally, concrete proof. The first ever photographs of an animal long considered extinct. An enormous boost to the team. But while the men prepare to party, they can't help but wonder what the rhinos are doing out there. Despite the history of destruction and war, it's great to have proof that a few of the rhinos have escaped. But the question remains, how many are left? Are there enough to be worth preserving? From studies in Java, they know that rhinos reproduce slowly, maturing at around 6 years and only having a single calf every 2 or 3. If both males and females of the right age remain in the park, they need peace and quiet to get on with it. Minimizing disturbance from people is central to the project. Gert's remit covers more than just rhinos. All animals and habitat in the park fall under his care, sometimes even ending up in his hands. The leopard cat, now nicknamed Lola, is ready for her first hunting lesson, a step that Gert hopes will help her prepare for eventual release into the wild. Leopard cats are confident swimmers, often found near water, although nobody has told Lola. Gradually, she will learn to recognize what's edible and what is not. The frog seems to be a success. Gert might be able to save this individual, but his greatest challenge remains. While he's on babysitting duty, the others hit the road. Much of their work involves talking to the local community, helping them to understand the importance of biodiversity. These people are proud of their rhinos and know the forest and its wildlife better than anyone. Mai and Pang follow a tip-off. They're going to meet one of the few eyewitnesses to have seen the phantom in the flesh. Pak Bao remembers a time when rhinos were a common sight around the villages. They were even sometimes hunted for meat. He believes that rhino numbers were quite healthy in this area, right up until the war. According to his memory, the bomb raids and chemical attacks were so severe that only 5 or 6 of the rhinos escaped. Sometimes, an eyewitness account like this is all they've got to go on.
The spraying of defoliants really knocked down quite a big area of habitat which was used by rhinos. Also, Kati National Park has been heavily sprayed.
The team members are all busy with their own lines of investigation. Meanwhile, the mechanical watchman is still on duty. It's not always the target species that triggers the trap. In this case, macaques. But the animal it's aimed at remains aloof. The camera traps are not working. It seems that since their first debut, the rhinos have become camera shy. Tracks show that they are actively walking around the sensors. Biologist Mai has a lot of experience in trying to outsmart the rhinos.
The best thing you can do in case the rhino knows the unit already, you should move the unit around. Usually, I think not only the rhino smell the material from the equipment, but they also know the location where they have been shot, because anytime you take a photo, it gives a flash.
Nevertheless, even in 4,000 hectares of forest, by systematically moving the traps around, sooner or later, they will track them down. The eerie calls of yellow-cheeked gibbons announce the dawn. As they feed, a muntjac deer lingers below, hoping to collect dislodged fruits. Both gibbons and deer need large tracts of forest to maintain healthy populations. The needs of these small animals can be met, but what about a creature the size of a rhino? Today's trail is to the heart of Cat Lock, rhino territory. How widely the rhinos range and the land area needed by each is not yet known. Searching the trail for clues, the men do disturb a rhino. But it's only a rhinoceros beetle. But nearby, there is a spectacular find. Rhino dung. For our team, dung is perhaps the next best thing to finding a rhino. It gives a wealth of information. not only on the rhino's diet, but also vital genetic detail that might eventually enable them to count the animals in the park. It could even answer some important questions. How old are the rhinos? Are they still young enough to breed? And most importantly, do both male and female individuals remain? For the rhino team, it just gets better and better. A rhino track. What's more, it's still fresh, meaning that the rhino passed only minutes ago. Every detail is meticulously noted, another addition to Mai's collection. It reminds Mai of his closest encounter with the phantom.
I myself only been closest to the rhino is the moment in 1999 when we seen the footprints with water inside still dirty. So the estimation is the rhino just passed about half an hour ago. But rhino team members recently, they've seen the rhinos. They are lucky, they've seen the rhino for 5 minutes.
They saw the rhino, but unfortunately didn't get the data to back it up. This footprint was found in soft, boggy ground, typical rhino habitat. A water dragon basks in the sun, but reed beds can conceal danger. The venomous rainbow water snake is searching. But not for lizards this time. Instead, he's after an unusual satisfaction. A tadpole cleaning service. In the past, animals like tadpoles, turtles and birds would gather to pick the ticks and other parasites from the rhinos' bodies. Losing the rhinos could make changes to the entire animal community. The reason for the rhinos' decline was partly the war, but they had been in trouble for many years before that, all because of their horn. These rhinos have just one small 15-centimeter horn on the end of their nose. And even this is missing in females. It's made of nothing more than matted hair and has no greater medical properties than human fingernails. And yet this tiny bunch of fiber has brought rhinos across the world to the brink of extinction. And they are still sought today by poachers wanting to make a quick buck by supplying the black market for use in medicine. Thanks to a highly skilled and dedicated team of wardens, no rhinos have been killed in Cat Tien for over a decade. The staff are an important link in the success of Cat Tien and the future of the rhino. They're recruited from the surrounding communities. Changing attitudes and getting the support from the local community will be vital in safeguarding the phantom. With protection and understanding in place, it's all down to the rhino itself. At the 11th hour, can this gentle giant claw its way back from extinction? Months of fieldwork, both from the rhino team and the park wardens, has amassed an impressive body of evidence. The spotlight now turns to Mai. He's on the verge of the biggest breakthrough to date. With his collection of plaster casts lined up, he believes he will finally be able to calculate the number of rhinos left in the park. The terrain and the speed the animal was traveling at can affect the data. But variation in hoof shape suggests there are at least 5 animals, perhaps as many as 9. Also, the footprints vary in size, the smaller ones offering hope that there are younger rhinos out there approaching their reproductive prime. There could still be potential for these rhinos to breed. The time has come for Gert and the rhino team to present their case. The pressure is on. At an international conference, they have the opportunity to argue for protection of the rhino before a panel of experts. World Rhino Authority Dr. Nico van Strien seems to be impressed.
And I'm also very happy to be able to report that the rhinos are still there and that significant progress has been made to secure this unique animal. Things can improve from a very bad situation because of active management, strong protection. Again, an example that it can be done.
A big relief for Gert and the rhino team. Their work is already paying off. In response to a plea to save the rhino, the government has launched an ambitious project to relocate thousands of people from the fringes of the park. In their resettlement areas, they will receive compensation and better land rights. It's a good deal for them, and hopefully a way of encouraging the rhino to expand its range. This project is more than just trying to stop the extinction of one endangered animal. It's about saving one of the world's richest biodiversities and the natural heritage of Vietnam. Already the wildlife has shown its resilience, clawing back after the ravages of war. But what of the ultimate challenge? After 5 years of intensive studies, they still have no concrete evidence that rhinos in the park are breeding. Are they too late? In the only other place in the world with Javan rhinos, Ujung Kulon National Park in Java, they have been protected for half a century, but still, only 60 remain. Biologists fear that they're at maximum capacity for that reserve. However, at the 11th hour, new evidence offers a glimmer of hope. The first pictures ever of a mother and her large, healthy calf. Biologists can confirm for the first time that these rhinos are breeding. Back in Vietnam, it offers new hope. Perhaps their rhinos also have the capacity to recover.
Here they look very similar, you know, very similar.
Better still, lab results from the dung can confirm that both males and females are in the park.
Yeah, they don't like it, you know. Even they have some wounded on the ears.
How long will it be before Gert, Mai and Pang are able to hear the patter of tiny rhino feet? But will the men ever get to see the rhino? Perhaps it doesn't matter.
I will not get depressed when I don't see it. I see footprints, I see signs. As long as I know there is a rhino, then I'm fine, I'm happy. It would be nice to see it with my own eyes, but it's more important for me to know that it's here and it's surviving.
Yeah, everybody hope to see the rhino, but it depends on if you're lucky, you can see that. Like the rangers, 3 of them see a rhino for 5 minutes.
Thanks to their dedication, the last Vietnam rhinos on the planet are safe. And the world now waits and hopes that maybe somewhere a Vietnamese rhino is protecting her newborn calf. Perhaps it's time for a comeback for the phantom of Vietnam.